Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab.
Hi there, good to be here.
Today we're tackling something I think pretty much every single person learning a language runs into.
Oh, for sure. That little knot of anxiety.
Yeah, exactly that. The fear of making mistakes, the dread of failure, really. We want to dive into why that feeling pops up, especially when you're learning English.
And more importantly, how you can shift your perspective. How you can start seeing failure or perceived failure as actually a really crucial part of getting fluent.
Right. Think of this as your, personal guide to shaking off that fear.
And unlocking that potential you have in English.
So this fear of failure,
Yeah.
it's a real thing, isn't it? Sometimes it even has a name.
It does. While maybe not always reaching clinical levels, that deep apprehension about not succeeding is very common. For English learners, it shows up in, familiar ways, like that nervousness before you speak, maybe some self-doubt creeping in, or even just, avoiding situations where you might slip up, playing it safe.
Okay, let's dig into that a bit. What is it about language learning, about English specifically, that seems to crank up this fear?
That's a great question. Several things feed into it. One big one is perfectionism.
Ah, yes. The need to be perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
That often unrealistic idea that every sentence has to be flawless right from the start.
Which is impossible.
Pretty much. Then there's the social anxiety angle, worrying about what others think.
About being judged or laughed at if you mispronounce something.
Absolutely. Or using the wrong word, getting the grammar tangled. You're putting yourself out there.
It feels vulnerable.
It really does. And cultural background plays a role too.
How so?
Well, in some cultures, making mistakes, especially publicly, can feel like a loss of respect or losing face. That adds another layer of pressure.
I see. So it's not just about the language itself.
Not at all. And then, of course, there are past negative experiences, maybe an embarrassing moment,
Oh, yeah.
or some harsh feedback can really stick with you, creating this lingering hesitation.
So one stumble can make you afraid to walk.
Yeah.
You might mispronounce one word and then suddenly you just clam up.
That's a really good way to put it. It can generalize. And psychologically, there's a reason for this.
Okay.
Our brains are fundamentally wired to avoid threats. Social awkwardness, or the possibility of rejection, can actually trigger a similar threat response in the brain as, a physical danger might have in our evolutionary past.
Wow. So messing up grammar feels like running from a tiger, biologically speaking, almost.
Well, maybe not quite that intense for most people, but the underlying mechanism, that social discomfort activating a threat response, is there. Your brain's trying to protect you from perceived social harm.
That makes sense. It feels fundamental.
It is. And with language, it's amplified because it's so tied to our identity, our connections, how we function socially and professionally.
So a mistake feels bigger than just a mistake.
It can feel like a real setback. You mentioned Maria's story earlier that really illustrates this.
Right. Tell us about Maria. She was a software engineer.
Yes, from Mexico, moved to the US. Technically brilliant, but English fluency was a hurdle, especially at work.
Okay.
In one meeting, she mispronounced algorithm, just slightly off. Some colleagues chuckled, probably not unkindly meant.
But it landed badly for her.
Deeply embarrassing for her. And the key thing is what happened next. She started avoiding speaking in meetings altogether.
So the avoidance became the problem.
That's it. The fear of repeating that humiliation hindered her, stopped her sharing ideas, slowed her career progress. A single moment created this larger pattern.
That's a really clear example of how it can spiral.
It is. Now, the good news is Maria did find ways around this, which we can talk about. But first, just having words for these feelings can help.
Like what?
Well, apprehension, that general unease or worry, debilitating when the fear really weakens you, stops you functioning fully. Then there's resilience, that crucial ability to bounce back. Vulnerability, accepting that learning means being open to errors. And persevere, just keeping going despite the difficulties.
Recognizing those feelings in yourself is maybe the first step.
Often, yes. Naming it takes away some of its power.
Okay, so we get why we feel this fear. But how do we start seeing mistakes differently? Not as failures, but as something useful.
This is the big mindset shift, isn't it? We need to stop seeing mistakes as the opposite of success.
And start seeing them as
part of the process of success. Think about anyone who's achieved anything significant. Edison and the light bulb is the classic example.
Right. Thousands of failed attempts.
He didn't see them as failures, though. He saw them as discovering ways not to do it. Language learning is kind of similar. Each mistake is an experiment guiding you closer.
That's a helpful reframe. And language is so complex, it's almost guaranteed you'll make mistakes.
Absolutely inevitable. The sheer complexity, the context. Getting a preposition wrong doesn't mean you're bad at English. It means you're actively trying, you're engaging, pushing your boundaries.
Is there actual science behind learning better from mistakes?
There is, yes. Research shows we often remember information better after making an error.
Really? How does that work?
Well, a 2014 study highlighted this. When you make a mistake, your brain has to work harder. It analyzes what went wrong, identifies the error, and then makes the correction. That whole process actually strengthens the neural pathways for the correct information.
So when I catch myself saying I buyed instead of I bought and correct it, my brain is actually doing some heavy lifting to lock in bought.
That's the idea. You're strengthening that connection. It makes those moments feel less like failures and more like, well, brain training.
That is encouraging. Makes the cringe factor a bit more worthwhile. You had Ahmed's story too?
Yes, Ahmed. He came to Canada from Syria, very little English, joined a class but was really hesitant to speak, terrified of mistakes.
Understandably.
He gave a presentation, mixed up his tenses. Classmates were nice about it, but he felt awful, really discouraged, almost quit.
Oh no. What happened?
His teacher suggested something simple. A mistake journal.
Mistake journal.
Yeah, just writing down the errors he noticed himself making and then the correct way. Over time, he saw patterns like, I always mix up past and present perfect. Focusing on those specific recurring errors helped him improve dramatically. A year later, he gave this fantastic presentation at a community event.
Wow.
And he specifically credited analyzing those early mistakes, using that journal as being key to his progress. He took ownership.
That's brilliant. Taking mistakes and actively turning them into lessons. So what are some practical ways we can do that? How can we embrace mistakes?
Well, the mistake journal like Ahmed's is a great one. Just the act of writing it down makes you more aware. Then active correction. When you notice an error, don't just mentally note it. Say the correct phrase or sentence out loud, maybe a few times. Really drum it in.
Yeah.
Also, celebrate the small wins. Notice when you do use a new word correctly or manage a tricky sentence. Give yourself credit for that.
Yeah, focus on the progress.
Definitely. And seek out constructive feedback. Find people, teachers, language partners who can point out errors helpfully, supportively.
Not just criticize.
Right. And maybe the biggest thing is that mental reframe we talked about. Shift from, I messed up to, okay, what did I learn there?
I like that. Takes the sting out. Okay, let's get specific. What about common situations that trigger this fear? Public speaking is a big one.
Oh, huge. Speaking in front of others in a language you're still learning, super intimidating.
Like introducing yourself at work or giving a presentation.
Exactly. The feelings, often intense anxiety, fear of embarrassment, loads of self-doubt. We heard about Lee, the student in the UK.
Right, she froze up.
Prepared her speech but mispronounced one word, got flustered, and then just rushed through the rest feeling terrible afterwards.
That sounds really difficult. What can someone like Lee do next time?
Preparation is key, obviously. Write it out, practice it out loud. Recording yourself is amazing for catching things you don't hear otherwise.
Good tip.
And focus on being clear, not necessarily perfect. People respond to the message more than flawless grammar usually. Visualization can help too, picturing yourself doing it confidently beforehand. And always have a plan B. If you forget a word, have a simpler way to say it ready. Think about vocabulary related to being articulate, having poise, sounding fluent. Aiming for those helps.
Great practical advice. Okay, another stressful area, writing, emails, essays.
Yes, especially professional or academic writing. That often brings out the perfectionist, loads of frustration, and again, that fear of judgment for errors.
Like Priya, who agonized over an email.
Right, procrastinating because she was so worried about grammar mistakes, delaying her whole project.
I think many of us have stared at that blank screen feeling that exact fear.
Oh, absolutely. But there are ways through it. Use the tools. Grammar checkers, spell checkers, they catch a lot.
True.
Break the task down, draft first, just get ideas down, worry about polishing later. Learn standard phrases for emails or essays that builds confidence.
Good idea.
And ask for feedback. Get a friend, teacher, or colleague to look it over. A second pair of eyes makes a huge difference. For writing, think about words like concise, coherent, and always proofread.
Break it down, use tools, get feedback. Makes sense. What about just casual chats? Surprisingly tricky sometimes.
They really can be. Talking with native speakers spontaneously can trigger nervousness, fear of not understanding or being understood, just feeling insecure.
Like Juan at the party.
Yeah, made a simple vocabulary mistake, felt embarrassed, and then just wanted to retreat from the conversation.
Those unplanned moments feel high stakes.
They can, but you can lower the pressure. Learn some filler phrases. Let me think. Well, actually, they buy you time.
Mm-hmm.
If you mess up, try to laugh it off. Oops, wrong word. Keeps it light. Practice active listening. Focus more on understanding them than worrying about your reply.
Good point.
And use context. If you miss a word, guess from the situation. For conversation, aim for clarity, learn how to engage, and accept that it's often spontaneous.
These situational tips are super helpful. But what about digging deeper psychologically? How can we tackle the fear itself?
Right. We need strategies for the mindset. Reframing is a powerful one. Actively changing how you view mistakes.
Okay, how does that work in practice?
It's often linked to cognitive behavioral therapy ideas. First, notice the negative thought, like, I'm just awful at English.
Okay, catch the thought.
Second, challenge it. Is it really true? Have I made zero progress? What's the evidence? What can I learn from this specific mistake?
Question it.
And third, replace it. Swap I'm awful for something more realistic and helpful, like, okay, that was tricky, but I'm learning, and each mistake helps me get better.
It sounds like it takes real conscious effort.
It does, especially at first, but it can become more automatic. It's about retraining your internal monologue.
What else helps psychologically?
Building self-confidence. And crucially, confidence often comes from taking action, not waiting until you feel confident to act.
Action first.
Set small, achievable goals. Maybe use one new phrase today and celebrate that progress. Track how far you've come. Visualize success. Imagine yourself handling that conversation or presentation well.
You mentioned Sophia, the nurse.
Yes. Sophia, from Brazil, working in Australia, very hesitant with patients initially, scared of errors. Her language coach helped her reframe thoughts from, I sound stupid, to, I'm practicing, I'm improving. She set tiny goals, like greeting one patient in English daily. Slowly, consistently, her confidence grew. She ended up a lead nurse, communicating fluently. Small steps built big confidence.
That's a fantastic story. It shows the power of that mindset shift plus action. And what about resilience? Bouncing back when things do go wrong.
Super important. Self-compassion is key here. Talk to yourself like you talk to a friend learning something hard. It's okay. Mistakes happen.
Be kind to yourself.
Yes. Find your tribe, join a language group, connect with other learners online. Sharing struggles makes you feel less alone. Positive affirmations can help too, reinforcing that positive self-talk. And don't forget breaks. Step away when you feel overwhelmed.
All really valuable strategies. Okay, let's get super practical now. Specific tips for English learners. Vocabulary building.
Crucial. More words means more options, less fear of getting stuck. Learn words in context, stories, articles, real conversations, not just isolated lists. Flashcard apps are great for spaced repetition. Group words by theme like travel, food, work. Understanding prefixes and suffixes helps too. It unlocks related words.
Got it. Any examples related to our topic?
Sure, like setback, a difficulty that delays you. Triumph, a big success or victory. And endeavor, a serious effort or attempt. Letting them together helps cement them.
Good examples. What about pronunciation? That's a big source of anxiety.
Definitely. Listen and imitate native speakers. Really pay attention to the sounds, the rhythm. Minimal pairs, words that sound similar like ship and sheep are great for training your ear. Record yourself. It can be cringeworthy at first, but hearing yourself compared to a native speaker is incredibly insightful. Even learning some basic phonetic symbols, the IPA, can demystify pronunciation.
Seeing the sounds written down, yeah, that can help. And grammar. The minefield.
It can feel like it. But again, mistakes are normal. Focus on common error areas, articles, anthe, prepositions, verb tenses are frequent ones.
Right.
Grammar apps offer good practice. Learn common sentence patterns. And honestly, if you're unsure about some complex grammar, simplify. Clear communication is usually better than grammatically perfect but confusing sentences.
Simpler is often safer and clearer. Now, you mentioned cultural differences earlier. How much does that impact this fear of mistakes?
Quite significantly. Attitudes towards failure really vary. In some cultures, maybe more collective ones, or those with a strong emphasis on face, an error can feel deeply shameful.
Like in parts of East Asia, perhaps.
That's often cited as an example, yes. So a learner from that background might feel immense pressure, even in a, say, American classroom, where the teacher is actively encouraging mistakes as learning opportunities.
So the internal pressure is much higher.
It can be, yes. Just being aware of that difference can help the learner manage their expectations and maybe adjust that internal pressure gauge a bit.
Aisha's story fits here, right?
Perfectly. Aisha, from Pakistan, studying in the US, very worried about mistakes because errors weren't really discussed openly back home.
Okay.
Her US professor actively welcomed mistakes, framed them as essential for learning. Gradually, Aisha started to internalize that perspective. It freed her up to participate more, take more risks, and her English improved massively. Finding that supportive environment was key.
That shows how understanding the cultural context can be liberating. Any tips for learners navigating these differences?
Maybe do a little reading or observation about the learning culture you're in. Notice how native speakers handle slip-ups. Ask questions if you're unsure. A teacher or peer can clarify expectations. It's not about ditching your own culture, but maybe adopting a more growth-focused view of mistakes specifically for your language learning can be really beneficial.
Adapting strategically. Okay, looking long-term now. Beyond tolerating mistakes, how can learners really thrive and succeed?
Developing a growth mindset is fundamental. That's the belief, popularized by Carol Dweck, that your abilities aren't fixed, but can be developed through effort and learning.
So believing you can get better.
Yes. And that leads you to embrace challenges, learn from criticism instead of fearing it, find inspiration in other success, and focus on your effort.
How do you cultivate that?
Actively seek challenges. Reframe criticism as helpful data, find role models, and praise your own effort, not just the result. I worked hard on that, not just, I got it right.
Focusing on the process, what else helps long-term?
A support system is vital. Don't go it alone. Join language exchanges, online forums, ESL classes. Connecting with others who get it makes the journey less lonely and more motivating.
Like Carlos finding confidence in his exchange group.
Exactly. Support makes a huge difference. And finally, plan for success. Set SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. Track your progress. Stay consistent, even small amounts daily. And reflect regularly what's working, what needs adjusting.
Growth mindset, support system, smart planning, powerful combo. And maybe some final inspiration. You have a few more stories.
Yes, just to really drive home that setbacks aren't the end. Elena came to Canada, failed her first ESL exam, felt terrible.
Oh.
But instead of giving up, she joined community theater, practiced English through acting in a fun, supportive space, got comfortable making mistakes. Years later, she was fluent enough to teach English to newcomers.
Amazing turnaround.
Then Raj, an IT pro, overlooked for promotion due to communication skills, terrified of public speaking, joined Toastmasters.
Brave move.
Very. Struggled initially, but stuck with it. Ended up giving a keynote at a tech conference. That skill jump-started his leadership career.
Incredible.
And May, who avoided parties due to conversational anxiety, started small, attending language meetups, practicing small talk, gained confidence, made friends, eventually started her own meetup group.
These are fantastic. They really show what's possible when you push past the fear. And if listeners want more help, there are resources.
Oh, tons. Language learning apps, great websites, grammar books, vocabulary builders, online communities, podcasts like this one. Lots of support out there.
So many tools available. Well, as you, our listener, continue on your English learning adventure, the main thing to remember is this. Don't let that fear of mistakes paralyze you.
Try to embrace them. See them as feedback, as essential steps on the path to fluency.
Every slip-up, every grammar glitch is genuinely an opportunity to learn and get stronger. You really can do this.
Oh, got this.
And if you found this deep dive helpful today, please do like this video, share it with others who might benefit, and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more insights and tips to help you master English.